you
A
remember
lifetime of being fooled.
Don't you remember the one in hearing room A?
Yeah, it was always on.
It was always on.
Yeah.
Sometimes by an hour. Because nobody changed it.
I don't think this
Alright.
needs a lot of action either, so probably don't.
Daylight savings time. Good morning. The time is 9 a.m. on 24 October. This is the time and place set for a special meeting of the Taxicab Authority Board of the state of Nevada. We're in Nevada State Business Center, 330 West Sahara, Las Vegas, Nevada. I will call the meeting to order and reflect for the record that present is Vice Chairman Thompson, Member Soderberg, Member Decker, the Administrator. This is the time and place set for continuation of the hearing in independent cab matter, and it appears that council and parties are all present. So I'll briefly ask you to make your appearance since we've been in hiatus for a little bit. On behalf of the applicant.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is Brent Carson and Claudia Hepner on behalf of the applicant.
Good morning, Mark Trafton on behalf of interveners Henderson Taxi and Whittlesey Blue Cab Company.
Bob Leonard, Desert Cab.
Good morning, Keith Gibson on behalf of Yellow Checker and Star.
Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, has this matter been noticed and posted in compliance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law?
Yes.
Our first item of substantive business is to take public comment. This is the opportunity for any member of the public who wishes to address the board on matters within its jurisdiction. No action may be taken on a matter brought to our attention. We've asked any member of the public who wishes to comment to try to keep their comments to about 3 minutes. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the independent cab hearing. I want to just apologize to everybody. I was in a hearing, acquired pneumonia, and was down for a month. Nothing to do with COVID. So my bad, and I apologize that we had to continue the hearing, but I was in no physical condition to do anything. So when we last left off, we were in the examination of Mr. Balaban, I'm sorry, Mr. Balaban. We recessed in August because it appeared to me as the presiding officer that the interveners may have not had all of the documentation that was a matter of record. And we had run out of notice, we're running out of notice time for continuation of the hearing. Following that, I caused to have delivered to each of interveners counsel a copy of all of those materials so that you would be as fully apprised as the board was, and we would correct any omission if there were any. I don't know if there were or not, but we've had a substantial period of time, so I think you are in a position now to go forward. As I advised council and members of the board, the first item we will do is reopen the cross-examination of Mr. Carson on those documents in case there is anything that the interveners want to put on the record in that regard. Before we do that, Are there any preliminary matters that we need to consider?
None from the applicant.
No? Okay. As usual, we'll follow summer rules, council, so if you don't want to wear your coat, don't have to.
It's kind of cold.
Yeah, it's starting to get there, isn't it?
One day.
Very good. Then, Mr. Carson, would you raise your right hand?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you are about to give, the Taxi Cab Authority Board of the State of Nevada will be the truth, nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. Very good.
I guess it's me.
Okay, very good.
And I believe we're talking about the latest lease structure. That's the limit. That's where you'd like us to stay focused.
Well, I think that was the area, I'm not going to limit you on any document you received that you hadn't seen before, in fairness. But what was clear to me as the presiding officer was that that document didn't seem to be fully, had not perhaps been fully disclosed to you, and it was a significant part of Mr. Balaban's examination. So,
We're going to try to focus on the latest lease structure.
okay.
But if there is some explanation on the employee structure that George or Mr. Balaban needs to raise,
Okay.
he's not a thinking violet.
I understand.
Okay.
You may proceed, Mr. Winter.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, Mr.
Thank you. Hello, Brent. Mr. Carson. Just going down some things that George wants me to raise with you. In the latest model I have, you have a $29,000 per car for purchase. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
There is no mention in there of sales tax, which is 8.375, $2,500 a car. By 40 cars, another 100,000. Are you representing that you can get cars for 26,500 and the sales tax is included, or did you just fail to put it on top of the 29?
Included.
Okay. So the 26,000 is the purchase price plus tax, gets it up to 29.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
That's my assumptions.
I know. And you have a 6%. I know the world's getting very different very fast. But you think that's a fair estimate, 6% to borrow money for these vehicles?
It's pretty close, yeah.
And only 20% down, even though you're going to turn the vehicle into a cab, drill holes, put in meters, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay. I do want to get to the call center. That was something new. You were estimating 100 calls a day. And this would be for people calling to get a taxi cab? 85 cents per call?
Yeah.
So that would work out 85 cents by 100 calls. That's $85 a day. That's what's in your pro forma.
Yeah, I'm looking for that one right now. I got it. Yeah, that's what I have.
How did you arrive at those figures?
I'm just talking to the gentleman from Curb who offers the service.
Curb. Okay, so that's a guy who says, when I get a call for a cab, I'll charge you 85 cents if you take it.
No, I'm pretty sure it's just whether I take it or don't take it. It's just per call.
Okay, but that's your only dispatching. Do I understand that right?
Yeah.
A dispatcher is supposed to monitor the cabs in addition to take calls and then refer the rides.
Somebody.
And most of the calls the dispatcher deals with as far as time of day is not getting a call for cab service, it's getting a complaint. Or it's the driver call and say, I had an accident. I need a phone call for this card number because I'm in one of these new casinos and you're in the basement, you can't get the thing to work. Most of what the dispatcher does is not taking calls for service, but dealing with the cab drivers. Did you have any understanding of that?
I mean, it's all, I mean, probably relative to, I'm sure you're gonna have cab drivers calling, you're gonna have people calling in.
Well, you gotta have somebody there.
Right.
Do you think Curb is gonna do all that for 85 cents a call?
No, but I mean, there's also managers, assistant managers, accountants, everything that I've listed here. Myself, Claudia, I mean,
Doesn't the dispatcher have to monitor? I mean, I think that's by law. The dispatcher has to be monitoring not just the phone, but where the cabs are all the time.
and it doesn't have to be just the dispatcher. It can be anybody that monitors. It
Okay,
doesn't say NAC 706 dispatcher must. It could be an employee maybe, or somebody.
okay, so you envision another employee, one that you have listed so far might be helping out or taking some of these calls for service or emergencies, breakdowns, complaints?
Yeah, somebody's gonna have to do it.
Okay, but that's included in your list of salaries.
Yes, it is.
The next question I have is you listed mechanics at $17 an hour. Where did you get that figure?
Based upon my operations with Las Vegas Limousines.
Okay, so you have mechanics there that work for $17 an hour?
I think give or take right there, that's what they start at. They may be bounced up a little bit since being there.
Okay. And then you have lot attendants at $10 an hour. Where did you get that figure?
People that clean our cars at Las Vegas Limousine.
Okay. So both those figures come from Las Vegas Limousine, your other business.
Correct.
How did you figure you're going to have someone as a mechanic at $17 an hour work only 6 hours a day?
It's just what I do. That's my assumptions.
Okay.
I mean,
The same question about the lot attendants. How are you going to get somebody to work for $10 an hour for a 4-hour shift?
these are just assumptions, Mr. Winter. I'm sorry. Is he going to pay?
What's it based on?
Huh?
They're your assumptions. What are
Right.
they based on? I mean,
Based upon the actual.
at the risk of, it just seems to me, somebody coming to work for 4 hours a day at $10 an hour, when minimum wage is almost that already, they're only going to work for 4 hours? I mean, and how did you make that decision? This is the assumption that's reasonable.
Based upon the timing of the current business operations that we have, how long it would take for them to do their job per day.
You mean to tell the board that currently you have lot attendants that come in for 4 hours a day?
I wouldn't even call them lot attendants. It's more like cleaners, car washers, stuff like that. But I put
You
them-
used
yeah,
the term, I didn't.
That's fine. I put-
You had made a mention.
I put cab cleaning workers. I don't know where lot attendance comes from. Where you say that.
Okay. You had mentioned, this is, I think, on your first day of your testimony, where you were talking about the first lease model was, I wanted to know what my dollar figures were and it worked from that, words like that. Do you remember that? Something like that.
Sure.
I was wondering about this 6-hour shift and this 4-hour shift at these low rates. Was that what you were trying to do, was make the business plan work? So instead of 8-hour shifts, you're going to reduce them so that the expenses are down?
No, it's just basic assumptions. This is a pro forma, and I'm pretty sure it's not gonna pan out to be an actual. It's a growing pain. I mean, if I have to, and they have to stay for 5 hours a day, then they stay for 5 hours a day, you know, and then my costs will definitely go up, and you're gonna say, then you're gonna say, oh, you don't make any money. So I don't,
Yeah, that's
I'm just telling you, these were my assumptions based upon the information that I had.
okay. And is what you're telling us that the reason you made these assumptions is to keep the costs low. And you have no other explanation for these short hour shifts.
No, I didn't say that. I said the reason I put those numbers was based upon my current practices.
Okay.
I didn't say I'm trying to lower costs.
Now, do you think you'll need more mechanic attention for a cab company than a limousine company?
I can't answer that correct. So I don't
Did you
know.
look into that?
No,
Okay. Your rent is still at $4,000. And you just, I think you said, I don't have a place to go, at least right now. You're just making an assumption again.
yes,
Right. You don't have an agreement with somebody anywhere for $4,000,
no, sir.
nor would an agreement somewhere with someone be an explanation why these shifts for these employees and mechanics and lot people were so low. That wasn't an agreement to pay a portion of it.
I don't have anything in writing, no.
Okay, does that mean you have a handshake with somebody?
Currently have a business that has mechanics, lot boys and everything like that. Yes.
Okay, I was talking about someone who's going to be helping you run this. Do you have any agreements that you haven't told us about?
Sorry, say that again.
You have an agreement with someone, whether or not in writing, of someone who's going to help you run this, that would explain some of these
No,
assumptions.
I told you before in my last testimony that, yes, I have a limousine company.
No, I understood that, but you
And
haven't
if I
agreed
could
on this.
offset some of the costs between that limousine company and another transportation company, I will definitely look into that.
Does that mean you've already looked into it and that's why you made these assumptions?
No, because I mean, it would be
All right.
different.
There's nowhere in the pro forma still for any expenses for shop equipment. If you run a cab company, you need a tire machine, alignments, lifts, scanners, air compressors. You understand that?
Yes.
But you don't have any expenses for that. Can you explain why?
I already own them.
You already own what?
Lifts, tire machines, everything like that.
Well, this is again your limousine company,
Right.
but you have no agreement to share that.
No,
The 25 cents per mile, that is something that you, I think, got from George Ballaway, right?
correct. And I believe in that 25 cents a mile, it also counts the mechanics' wages.
Well, there's more wear and tear on cabs than there are on limousines. Cabs just drive more. Limousines, you take them and then they sit and wait for you. You understand that, right?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. Again, we go back to the insurance costs. Your estimates were you were getting a first dollar coverage, but you did not include any self-insured retention, right?
Right.
Do you have any, well, I know you don't. Why is there no expenses for on-scene adjusters for accidents and post-accident adjusters, payments to people who handle these claims?
Are you trying to get DB Ford or something?
Yeah,
Well, I don't have to hire DB.
I didn't say hire DB, but you gotta hire somebody. Somebody's gotta do it. You're not gonna do that too,
I'm not gonna wake up, no.
and that's not in there.
Okay.
Right.
No, but it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Last time we were here, we talked a little bit about those med rides you had raised as if they were an area of business that wasn't getting served. Do you remember that?
I just said it was an alternative course. I don't know if it was being served or not, because I know your client, Mr. Balaban, does some of them.
I think he did. I don't know if he still does.
And I think he also did some Medicaid rides too.
Can we agree on this? This is just the latest lease model, that if you have a lease driver, you can't make him go take these rides, right?
My understanding.
I mean, with any transportation, paid miles is where it is. If you're moving your ship or your cab, if it's empty, that's deadhead. If it's loaded, that's good, paid mile. So the best rides here in Clark County is on the strip, and that's where your lease drivers, more likely than not, will go, right?
Sure that there's some people that like the suburbs, build up a clientele.
I'm looking at the lease proposal, and you have increased the amount of the lease to now $850, which I believe is a week, right?
Yes, sir.
That's to increase revenue from what it was in the last pro forma, right?
I think it just goes with the times, yeah.
Okay. Do you know there are other cab companies in town that lease for about $750 a week?
I don't know their rates.
Okay.
I mean, you tell me.
Well, where did you get the 850? Was it just to increase revenue?
No, just talking to a cab drivers.
Okay, there are some cab drivers that pay that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You also did something here, that 10 of the cars, you were going to do a shared lease. Did I read that right?
Yes.
That means if a cab can legally be on the road for 12 hours per shift, then you could have 2 shifts in any 24-hour period.
Correct.
And the purpose of having 10 of the cars, I think it was 10. Was it 10?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. On a shared lease was to increase revenue. So that would be $850 and then $850 for a total of $1,700 a week, right?
Yes.
How can you, how can you do that? I mean, realistically, if a guy can lease a cab from you for $850 and have it for the week, right? And he can decide when he wants to go out in any 24-hour period, 12 hours. He can use it to pick up the kids, go to the grocery store, whatever he wants to do. He can sit. But he's leased the car, and you're charging him $850, which I get. Why would that driver agree to share his lease for $850?
Well, I can't assume why he would do anything, but I do know that there are shared lease in the industry. So I'm following pretty much the examples of what you guys are already putting forth.
There are shared leases. I understand that's true. But you think the guy's going to lease a car from you, a cab, for $850 when he has to share it? Or do you think the industry is leasing the cabs for closer to the $750, $800, and they're only paying half of that per sharer, if that's a word?
I don't know.
Well, does it make sense to you that if a guy could go to, say, Virgin Valley and lease a cab for about $750, and he have it all by himself, that he would want to share a lease with you and still have to pay $850? And now he's got to deal with, okay, who's going to pick you up? Who's going to drop you off? I'm going to get you. Who's going to park my car? I mean, the logistics of having a shared lease seem overly optimistic with this $850 per sharer of the lease. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't agree it's overly optimistic, but I will say that these are just assumptions. These are not,
What do you
these are
think
not actuals, Mr. Winter. I'm sorry.
I'm with
I
you.
made my assumptions based upon the best knowledge that I had.
I get you. I get you. I know it's not actual, it's an assumption, but the assumption that 2 guys would pay $1,700 a week for a lease when they could lease it for $850 and have the whole car themselves, is that a reasonable assumption?
I don't know, are you saying that the drivers keep the car and take it home?
I'm asking you to answer the question.
I made my statement. These are
Okay.
my assumptions, and I think they're reasonable.
Okay. You understand that Virgin Valley is a company run by Desert or George Balaban, and they are entirely leased.
That is my understanding. But I think he owns it and runs it.
Yes. Did you make any effort to find out what the revenue those leased vehicles were producing in a month?
No.
Why not?
I'm pretty sure you don't want me talking to your client.
Can you get any of this from the statistics at the tax cap authority?
I mean, on the statistics, it's broken down by revenue per trip. So,
Sometimes, yeah.
I
And
don't,
medallion. But you can have a total of how much money Virgin Valley leased revenue comes into Virgin Valley.
no, because I don't know how many cars are going out.
Well, and by the way, you can talk to my client. He's pretty tough, if you want the information. Do you think it's a fair way to examine the reasonableness of your assumptions is to look at what Virgin Valley is doing, which is 100% leased fleet?
I believe that would be the best model.
It's a reasonable thing to do, to examine your estimates, not actuals, but your assumptions,
Well,
and see how they stack up against Virgin Valley's actuals.
and I asked for your financials and I wasn't given them. Sorry, I tried.
Okay. If we take off the 10 cars that do shared leases, what does that, how does that affect your profitability and viability? I mean, that's $8,500 a week. You're assuming somebody's going to pay for half a lease, but pay full price.
Okay.
Okay, if we get rid of that,
To get rid of that?
the 10 cars, so your vehicles are only being leased by
Okay.
one guy, no sharing.
Well, I don't think it's as easy as you just say, take off $800, because then you got to go through every calculation and say, oh, I got to reduce my mileage. I got to reduce my TA fare because of the trip. Because I also included the mileage in the maintenance, the mileage in the trips for the TA. So you're going to come down. I don't know. I had not calculated that number.
Fair enough. Do you think it'd be a reasonable thing to do? Try to figure that out.
No?
Fair enough. Oh, I wanted to follow up one thing with you. Under 706-151, which is one of the factors this board must consider in reviewing this application, right?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't it call that this board try to proffer or promote sound economic conditions, efficient, safe, adequate service?
Yes, fair and impartial regulation, safe and efficient service, and foster sound economic conditions.
That's something that isn't just a 20% equity, is it?
That's the only financial requirement listed in either NRS or NAC for taxi cabs.
You do not believe 706-151 requires this board to review the reasonableness of an application in order to follow sound economic conditions?
I do think they should follow reasonableness.
Okay,
I don't think they should follow. Go ahead.
no, that's it. Thank you.
Keith? Sure. And this is focused on, still on the lease model. Based upon your assumptions, if all of your assumptions are 100% accurate, your profit is $87,774 and change. For simplicity.
That's what the numbers say.
Okay. And if you take out what Bob just asked you about, if you remove those extra 10 leases at $8,500 a week, That's 85, actually, that's more than that. My math's bad this morning. That's what, 85, 93, roughly $100,000 of extra expenses, correct?
That's revenue.
Revenue.
Huh?
Revenue.
Less
No,
revenue.
that's less revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would, therefore, that alone, one factor now turns what's, you show as basically an $85,000 profit to a negative.
Again, what I told Mr. Winter is that you would have to go through each and every one of those assumptions and subtract out maintenance costs for those 10 vehicles, the drivers, the costs that were involved, all the fixed or all the variable costs would also be reduced.
All right. So so you have basically $100,000 less revenue. And then he already kind of talked about it with the employees with regard to the mechanics. You have two mechanics working 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. Is that your assumption?
Yeah.
And so,
Mr. Reasoner, if I can, as my attorney, is that I would just object to this. This is duplicative, and the David Cassidy, the hearing officer, said there's going to be no duplicative testimony by the interveners or questioning. So go ahead. Okay.
all right, so but you have your mechanic working 6 hours a day.
That's what the assumption is.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, when I made I made a miscalculation earlier. When I said 8,500 a week, I actually was calculating that just on a monthly basis, and that would be $100,000 less. If you take it out per week, you remove $8,500 a week, that takes approximately $400,000 out. Would that be accurate as far as additional revenue?
That's what you say.
In fact, the exact math is $442,000. All
That's what the calculator says.
right, do you think it's sound business policy to allow a business to operate when it's the best assumptions are going to operate at a $500,000 loss essentially?
I would never go into a business with $500,000 loss, but what you're looking at here is you're just taking one number and saying it's not reasonable. So I've said this time and time again to you, Mr. Gibson, this is an assumption based upon the information that I had, that it's for reasonableness. Is it reasonable to have these numbers? Yes, they are. Because I do know that revenue, I have at 850, and I know that some companies are charging upwards of $1,000. I also only put 32 cars on the first thing because of that. If I want to increase those 3 cars to 35, which I am asking for, that would increase my revenue. All of this is based upon reasonableness. I'm trying to be as best as I can, so.
And as far as the cab cleaning workers, you factored in 4 hours a day. If that assumption is off by half and if they require 8 hours a day, that would be an additional $43,000 of additional expenses, not counting any payroll taxes and that type of thing. Is that correct?
That's what your math is. But let me go to this, explain this a little bit better, is that I also took into account the many things that Mr. Balaban testified to, is that there's a 25-cent per mile for maintenance, and that included the lot people, the mechanics, and everybody. So this, when you're talking about mechanics for 2 of them at $17, that's already accounted for basically in the maintenance cost that I have on that other line item. That's just gravy.
So $45,000 additional would be great, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying the amount that I included for more is gravy.
All right, and you can get them, in your proposal, you said that the owners have spoken with 2 very qualified individuals with years of experience, and they're willing to work for you as a manager for $60,000.
Yes, sir. Although I don't know about I haven't discussed any numbers with him.
So is the salary best estimate?
That's my estimate.
And you think you can get in a similar vein, you think you can get a CFO for $60,000?
Yes.
And you think you can get an accountant assistant for 40?
Yes, sir.
And did you speak to anybody to get these figures, or these are just the figures you utilized?
These are the figures I utilized.
In your law practice, do you have an accountant?
Sorry, Keith,
In your law practice, do you have an accountant on staff?
sitting right next to me.
You pay her $40,000 a year?
Nope.
More, because I do more than accounting. I have many positions in the firm.
And I think your estimates as far as getting the business up and running, it's roughly about 300,000 as far as going into the bank account. And then the roughly the $200,000 for the 20% of the cars you're going to purchase, as well as other cash approximately, correct?
That sounds right.
I think you had said you thought you were previously testified about putting $1 billion into the business. Does that sound accurate to you?
That's what I budgeted, but when I did my pro forma and did my cash analysis, I think it came up to, in order to confirm or correlate with the 20% required by law, it was 550-ish thousand.
Right. And so, but if it was, all right, so you factored in, you get at least 500,000, but you kind of budgeted $1 million. So based upon what you just said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you're looking at going into a business with $1 million, and if all your assumptions are accurate, you're going to make an 8.7% return. Is that a fair assessment?
Better than CD.
But with a lot of risk too, right? Making sure I don't duplicate what I've covered. And just asked about that. As far as when you spoke to those two individuals about coming to potentially be your manager, when did those conversations occur?
It was before the first hearing, so I would probably say June-ish.
So June of this year?
Yeah.
And did you speak to the general man, when you spoke to that person, did you talk about like the cost of dispatchers or anything else or any other positions with regard to the taxi cab company? Like, hey, how much do you think it's going to be for a dispatcher? How much do you think it's going to be for this?
No.
Do you think they may have had that information?
It's possible.
Do you think that would have provided you more information to make better assumptions upon?
No, I think I did fine.
And is it your intent for the mechanics to work out of the Las Vegas limousine location?
I haven't made that decision yet.
But if you don't do that, you'd have to have all the equipment that Las Vegas limousine has. Either you'd have to buy duplicate equipment, wouldn't you?
We'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
Okay.
Which are. I believe that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Carson.
Mr. Trapton?
Would you agree that within the application process, the pro forma requested by the taxi cab authority as part of the application process can provide insight into the fitness of the applicant?
Yeah, I guess.
It can provide information to the board and help the board determine whether the applicant is suitable to run a tax cap company, correct?
I don't know, wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think a pro forma is not an actual. In evaluating whether my pro forma was reasonable or whether or not a company can be viable, I think they have that information at their own fingertips. They have every one of your guys' annual reports.
The original, let's talk about now the three performance that are before this board, the original and then the two amended. You testified just a minute ago and then several times at the first part of the hearing that over 90% of the information that you revised and amended in the two amended performas, you gained that information from the interveners, correct?
Yeah, mostly Mr. Balaban.
Mr. Balaban, right. So the first part of this hearing, we learned about the amended performa regarding the new employee model. We came back on that Tuesday morning, and you were examined regarding the amended performa, specifically the employee model. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And then you had the opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Balaban, and you asked him a lot of questions about the amended performa regarding the employee model. Do you remember that?
Not specifically, but yeah.
And he gave direct testimony about his criticisms of the amended employee performa, correct?
Correct.
Did you learn more information during that examination that you've since decided that you need to amend your performa again?
No.
Did you learn anything from Mr. Balaban regarding the amended performa, specifically the employee model?
Of course I learned something from Mr. Balaban. I mean, who would be stupid not to take his advice
Right.
and stuff? But I mean, I'm not
I
going to
agree.
change it again.
Okay, so there are no more changes that you've made.
No,
I mean, yes, that's correct.
excuse me. I have not made any more changes.
Okay. When I took your deposition quite a while ago, one of the things you said, and I'm paraphrasing, so if you don't think it's fair, but we were talking about the performa, and you said, I want to learn from the interveners if my performa, my projections are way off. I want to know that. Do you remember talking to me about that?
Yeah, that's why I requested your financials.
Fair enough. So would you now agree that since you amended the original performa, that your original performa was way off?
Yeah, it was subpar.
A couple of specific questions on the amended lease performa. Regarding the cost of the vehicles, so the actual vehicle price is going to be closer to 26,000, right? That's what you're projecting?
Yes, sir. I just rounded up to include all the delivery, all that stuff.
Okay, and what specifically is the 26,000 based on?
As I testified last time, I've gotten quotes from a guy at GMC for these Equinoxes.
You have written quotes?
Verbal.
Sorry?
Just verbal. I talked to the fleet and sale guy.
Okay, and when did you speak to the sale guy?
Probably, I would say probably the same time, June-ish, July, before the first hearing.
Okay, so you haven't had any follow-up conversations with him about the price of the cars?
No, sir.
And the 6% interest that you project, what is that based on?
I think it was just based upon bankrate.com.
And that was before the last hearing?
Yes, sir. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks before the last hearing.
Okay, and that's not been updated?
No, sir.
The two people that you reference in the pro forma, the two very qualified individuals, were those listed, those two qualified individuals, were they listed as witnesses in this case?
No,
Why not?
I think I explained that to you last time, is that I'm not gonna have you guys calling and harassing them.
Well, you listed Mark Friedman, right?
And he was called and harassed.
But that was, your intent was to hire him, right?
Yeah, possible. I mean, it just says possible. I think he's a candidate.
So do the board members know who these two very qualified members are?
No,
You haven't submitted it to them?
no,
And are they individuals with experience in managing a taxi cab company?
transportation companies, yes, and that's transportation companies.
So the answer to my question is no, they're not experienced in running a taxi cab company?
Didn't say that.
Well, can you answer the
Trying to
question?
fish?
No, I want to know if they have experience running taxi cab companies, because that's one of the
They've been involved
requirements.
with taxi cab companies.
Sorry?
They have been involved with taxi cab companies.
Have they managed taxi cab companies?
No.
The amended performas, other than the information that you learned from Mr. Balaban, did you speak with anybody else to assist you in the revisions that you made?
I don't think so, no.
So it was just all your work amending these? Nobody helped you?
Right. Yeah, just took the suggestions that were in the answers to discovery. Created these new documents.
Those are all the questions I have.
Do you want to redirect yourself?
No, sir.
I'd like to see that.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Awad. I'm an intervener. I apologize for last time I wasn't here due to a death in my family. I would like to be just asking.
No, you may not. You did not participate in the earlier part of the hearing. We're not recognizing anybody else who did not participate. That's my rule.
I respect that. I disagree with you. I'm an intervener. There's no reason for me not to ask a question regarding his testimony today.
I'm not going to let a party who did not show up. That's like showing up to the 6th day of a jury trial and saying, hey, I was a party, but I didn't show up and try the first part of the case.
I had to leave the country.
I
Let me
appreciate
finish. Because of death in my family. And you're telling me I cannot ask limited questions regarding his testimony today?
I am.
Thank you.
Do any members of the board have questions? Mr. Carson?
I do not. The applicant will be,
Yeah, he'll be
rebuttal
available.
will have opportunities to ask questions then?
Yes.
Okay, then I think that'd be more appropriate.
No, I do not. Very good. It is now Mr. Balaban's turn to retake this thing.
Whatever is helpful.
Down a little bit.
Chair, one more time, Mr. Awad, on behalf of Lucky Cab and Lucky Limousine and Western Cab, am I allowed to participate in any hearing going forward? Or I'm not?
It is my ruling, Mr.
Awad,
Awad, that you may not, because you did not ask to be excused, you did not make
I
any.
did ask counsel to stand on my behalf,
you-
and he did, and said, I'm going to be out of the country because of a death. And that's part of the record. But anyway, I'm just going to ask for clarification. Because if I'm not allowed to participate,
You're sidelined,
sideline,
you're sidelined, you're not.
can you cite any authority for your decision?
I already have indicated you did not participate, you did not show up, make an appearance, and, or submit anything to the board asking to be accommodated in this fashion. Now you want to come into the middle of a hearing and be recognized and participate when you didn't participate before. I think that's fundamentally unfair to the other parties. Can you cite me authority?
I'm asking you, you made the decision. I want to ask you, give me a cite
Council.
for the decision.
Council, we're done.
Hold on a second. You're done. I'm not. I want to be heard. As a member of the public, as an interested party.
Then,
I
as a
want to be
member-
heard. I want to make a
Council-
record.
Council, as
Yes,
a member of the public, you can comment during public comment. You may make your record now as an intervener.
I'm making my record that I did intervene and we are a party as part of the record. Based on the rulings by the hearing officer is to allow the lawyers to narrow down their issues so we don't have any to be repetitive with respect to the presentation. So we did not ask questions. We did not file separate pleadings, but we are an interested party. We are an intervener. Anything that was not discussed in the prior hearings, I'm entitled to stand here and cross-examine and intervene. If I want to give you the discretion that anything before, I'm not allowed to do that, that's fine. But anything going forward, with any testimony by anyone that was not part of the previous hearings, we are an intervener unless there's a ruling by you and we are not. And I am here to cross-examine and ask questions. I'm not going to waste your time or my time to do this. So,
Have you made your record?
yes, I made the record.
Ms. Dante, are you there? Is that the DAG, I think? Huh?
Is the DAG on?
Is the,
There's a record.
Ms. Brillado?
She is not. Let me check all the
Who's on?
participants. Ms. Dante has her hand raised.
She's,
But she's lucky.
she works for Lucky.
Oh, she does, okay.
And Western.
So we're without a DAG.
She said she was going to appear, but I didn't see.
And for the record, she appeared in the prior hearings.
No,
Another day.
no.
She did. She was online.
We're gonna take,
Is it online and not an appearance?
we're gonna take a 5-minute
Huh?
recess.
Oh, I don't. Doesn't have to speak.
Jason hasn't changed.
Huh? No one appeared this. Huh?
That's